Hold on, what? I've just noticed that this guy's name is Java Berlin. This bloke is literally named after the campaign he was unlocked in. What on earth? Maybe this really is a sign from the mighty snail god for me to make this video. Who would have thought? The snail is communicating with me. Enlisted currently has 5 very different campaigns to play. You can play at any time and with whatever weapons and squads you want to use, but it's often quite daunting to pick one, the amount of choice you get. Or maybe you're just bored with one campaign and want a new experience. What campaign should you play? That's what we're answering today, and just before we start, do consider subscribing and give this video a like. Come on, don't be silly. You're going to enjoy the video, so just click it. But enough babble, let's get into it. Before we talk about specific campaigns, I would advise you to go to the campaign tab on every campaign and just scroll. If you don't understand the campaign tab, then watch this video on screen for you now because it's the most complete guide out there on the game. On this tab you will see every squad and every weapon that you eventually will unlock should you choose to commit to this campaign and faction. Honestly, everyone should do this before they sink hours and hours into a campaign. You can also click on specific weapons to see how good they are. Picking a specific level from a weapon that you like the look of and setting a goal to reach gives you that motivation to want to get to that level and unlock it. If nothing else, doing this may help you narrow down your options so you can concentrate on spending your bronze, silver and gold orders on fewer campaigns. And if you don't know what these are, then watch this video, which you can find by clicking in the top right hand corner of the video. But equally, I'd also strongly recommend you to not pick just one campaign, so you don't get bored of the same thing over and over. As the game is still receiving regular updates though, there will be more weapons added to each campaign, so the campaign tabs will change over time, and it's good to keep coming back to check them. Normandy is probably the first campaign the majority of beginners play, but it's also the most popular campaign in the game. So if you want to play with many other players, then I guess you should probably subscribe to the channel. Yeah. Oh, and ring that bell so you never miss a future video. Most beginners pick Normandy allies in particular because, well, for the films. For the allies you can unlock iconic weapons such as the M1 Thompson, the M1 Garand, the BAR-A2, the M3 flamethrower and even the M9 bazooka, as well as the P-47 aircraft and tanks like the Sherman and Jumbo, among many others. You get American voice lines and quite a cinema-like campaign, and you genuinely will feel like you are part of one of those World War II films, storming the beaches of Normandy and then pushing further inland with your allies. The Axis equally house great opportunities for a very different style of play. They too have iconic weapons such as the FG-42, the MG-42, Panzerfaust, the Panzer Schreck, the MP-43/1, the Mauser C-96, as well as the Messerschmitt line of aircraft, and everyone's favourite tank, the Tiger tank. Oh, and everyone's favourite German word, the Flammenwerfer. Obviously you get German voice lines instead of American ones, it would be kind of weird if you didn't, and it's quite a different experience to the allies as the majority of maps you will be defending, unloading hell onto allied troops with machine guns or snipers, such as in D-Day and other beach-based maps. Now there are lots of positives to this campaign, not least the weaponry and vehicles you can obtain, and many of the maps really do make you feel like you're in the correct place historically. It's fun to play, and that's the whole point. Therefore it definitely qualifies as a good campaign to play if you really do enjoy the idea of either fighting to regain control of France or defending France from a massive allied army. But no campaign is perfect, and this one obviously may not suit some specific players. For example, this campaign suffers from constant explosions everywhere and all the time. It's by far the worst campaign if you hate this 24/7 explosion mess. This is because with it being set in late World War II with aircraft and heavy 500-pound bombs, HVAR rockets, impact grenades, meaning grenades that instantly detonate on impact so you can't do anything to escape them, explosive packs to blow up tanks, anti-tank and anti-personnel mines, anti-tank explosive weapons, constant artillery barrages, grenade launchers on rifles, even mortar squads contribute to this utter chaos of a campaign.
Whoever's involved in this, stop it.
Therefore, I have to be honest, in its current state, playing as an infantry squad is quite difficult, but this does vary heavily depending on the map and the ability of both your teammates and enemies. You have to really think about your pathing, and I'd really recommend you run up against walls or inside buildings to get to your destinations to not get blown up, and have excellent reaction times to dodge the explosions or throw them back. So if you are a new player and you do die a lot in this campaign, do not worry, because everybody does does.
You have to act so surprised if I'm not Make-A-Wish child, man. I'm alright.
But if you're looking on tips on how to get better at the game in general, then you can find them by clicking in the top right hand corner of the video now. But yes, if you like fast-paced combat and explosions, then this is the campaign for you. But for many, it can be very stressful, that's for sure.
Don't give me stress. I don't like stress. Yeah?
The only other big thing is the fact that many new players specifically play as the Allies in Normandy, as I said. This may mean it's not always a balanced gameplay experience, as in many situations you may end up with a full team of relatively new players who are still learning their trade for the Allies. This can be made extremely obvious on maps like D-Day, which are more difficult for the Allies to win anyway, and you're often against a more experienced Axis team. As I said before, players normally begin with and complete the Allies before moving over to the Axis, so they know more about the game, and your team get torn a new one as a result. This is another reason why I recommend playing at least a few different campaigns to play, and sticking around for the rest of this video after giving it a like, of course. Come on guys, click it. Because if you're lucky and this situation does describe many of your first few games, then varying it up with other campaigns is sensible to get a real opinion on the game. Other than this, I really have no complaints about the campaign. Yeah, of course, people have specific preferences over maps, weapons, etc., but you will figure these out by yourself just by playing, and they are not for me to try and influence you over. The Moscow campaign was actually the first released campaign for the game, and let me tell you, it's still very fun. Here you still get the Allies versus the Axis, but the Allies are now the Soviet Union, for obvious reasons, because if it was the Americans that were ever near Moscow, then we'd probably never hear the end of it, to be honest. It's also a campaign that takes place much earlier in the World War II timeline, so this campaign features more heavily bolt-action rifles and many fewer automatic and semi-automatic weapons, which is honestly a very nice change of pace. With a variety of snowy maps, Russian architecture including log cabins, villages and even a mansion, and unique uniforms for both the Soviets and Germans to reflect the environments that they're fighting in, I must say the campaign does look stunning. If you're looking for much slower gameplay with many fewer explosions, then this one is definitely for you, and I'd actually strongly recommend this campaign for new players. The Soviets get access to famous Mosin rifles that dominate this campaign, the awesome SVT and AVS rifles, the world famous PPSH of course, unique DT-29 machine guns, the meme Nagant pistol, and iconic vehicles of the time such as the T-50 and T-34 tanks, among so many others. The Germans get new Kar-98K variants, the awesome sniper MKB-42, the world famous MP-40 alongside the Hungarian Kirai 39M and Czechoslovak ZH-29, in combination with a variety of new other weapons, vehicles and aircraft. It's probably the campaign I have the most fun playing personally, and I can't lie about that. But, and the big downside in my opinion of this campaign, is that it is the most unbalanced of all the campaigns between the Allies and Axis.
What do you mean by that?
Do you think that's necessary?
This is because of two things. One is due to a lack of German full automatic rifle in the campaign entirely. The Soviets have one, the AVS-36, which they only get right at the very end of the campaign tree to help keep the campaign slower paced and bolt action heavy. But the Germans only get a sniper that is fully automatic, meaning it is much more heavily restricted to fewer troop classes, while the Soviets also get the AVS as a sniper as well. So it's completely unbalanced in that respect, as there is a reason why fully automatic weapons are the norm in current day weaponry, and we don't still use bolt action rifles. We're not Napoleon, guys, come on.
Oh no! Anyway, last week...
The second thing that makes this campaign unbalanced are the late game assaulter weapons. The PPSH is miles better than anything the Germans get, and apparently their best is the Kirai 39M. I mean, just look at the stats. Now yes, both of these unbalancing effects are only obvious in the very late game campaign, so for basically everybody watching this video now, it probably won't affect you, at least right now. It is also something that developers could address quite easily by adding in a German fully automatic, and hopefully only one, to keep its bolt action heavy and not ruin the theme of this campaign. So I hope they do this. Regardless though, both campaigns in this faction are very fun to play, and getting good with bolt actions will indeed help you so much on every campaign. It's just that the Germans might just feel discriminated against if they complete the campaign, but fortunately the effects of this would affect such a small number of games you won't really notice it at all. I should say that I've heard many other content creators with really stubborn opinions saying that this campaign is the most balanced out of them all, which blows my mind because clearly they aren't looking at the unlocks, as I told you to do in the beginning of this video. So they really are complaining for no reason at all, and they're just wrong, because the facts are clearly on my side.
Hope you get hit by a bus today, you f***ing wank.
Trust me, I did a ton of research of this video, so if you don't subscribe to the channel now, then I hope I guilt trip you now into clicking it. The Battle of Berlin was the third campaign released by the developers, and also the second most popular campaign, according to 1,000 of you guys on the poll I did a while ago. Now, here we have basically the complete opposite of the Moscow campaign we just spoke about, but with the same factions. It's set during the very late war. I mean, the German capital was literally being stormed, so it's hard to get a later campaign in the World War II. This means a very different change of pace from Moscow. It's very fast-paced and dominated by close quarters combat. It also shines due to late war, fully automatic weapons being commonplace. So if you like Call of Duty, Halo, or basically any other modern FPS game, then this is probably the most similar campaign to what you're used to. But that doesn't mean it's necessarily beginner friendly, because you do start with bolt actions once again, as you do in every campaign. For me though, it's definitely up there with the most fun campaigns and something very different from the others. The maps are also gorgeous, as you actually see the Brandenburg Gate and other famous Berlin landmarks in the game itself. And everywhere you go, you hear that famous chant, as now it's the Soviets' turn to attack the enemy's capital rather than the other way around. It's so immersive and hectic, and it also doesn't suffer from the same explosive spam problems as Normandy does, even though they are both set in the late war when the new explosion-related technologies were already developed, because tanks and aircraft specifically aren't as effective in Berlin due to the objective points mostly being indoors and all the fighting taking place indoors. Many of the same weapons and vehicles appear for both the Germans and Soviets here as in Moscow, but some of the new awesome ones you would definitely want to level up to get include the Sudaev submachine gun, the PPS, the AVT-40 and the Fedorov Automat, and the IS-2 tank for the Soviets, with the Germans newly receiving the mighty FG-42, the STG-44, the MP-43/1 and the Tiger II tank. And due to the weaponry, you can much more easily mow down entire squads, which is really satisfying, let me tell you.
I'm a professional. This is what I do.
That being said, it's not the perfect in the slightest. For starters, it's not a campaign you want to play if you want something laid back with no real stress. Go back to Moscow or even Tunisia if you want that, because Berlin does not provide that.
Don't give me stress.
Berlin requires great reaction times and quick decisions to adapt to the fast-paced gameplay. Pros from other infantry-based games will likely dominate you for a while until you get to grips with the map's weaponry and strategy. So as I said before, it's not particularly beginner friendly. And this leads to the second point, that because you start with just bolt actions, and while semi-automatic rifles are not far away at all at only level 7, it still takes a fair few games to reach it, so it might seem a bit unbalanced in that respect. But you should not give up, because I easily dominate games with just bolt action rifles against enemies with fully automatic weapons. And if I can do it with no superhuman powers, then you can as well.
Lower your expectations, man. You're not a decent player anymore.
Lastly, the new Armoured Train game mode is an awesome game mode, and I'm really glad it came into the game. However, the developers have decided to use that map, which takes place quite some distance outside of the city of Berlin itself, more often for other maps, and I've seen some players complain that it's becoming too common, so that the campaign should actually be named the Battle of Berlin's Suburbs. And this does make sense. I've been getting a lot of these maps recently in my games, but it's not too significant of an issue luckily, and I'm sure the devs will alter this in time anyway. So if you click like on the video now, I'm sure they'll listen. So click it. What are you waiting for? The fourth campaign to be released was the first that took place in a different continent from all the others, so it had a lot of promise, and it still does, as it's another bolt action reigns supreme type of campaign. It's early war again, though slightly later than Moscow, so once again it's slower paced than Berlin and Normandy, but it's not completely slow. It has a good mix of powerful automatic weapons too, though not in terms of rifles, so there won't be an absurd number of automatic weapons running around in your games. But if you guys know where Tunisia is located, as in, close to the Sahara Desert, then you should know that this campaign is very bright and open. This makes it the perfect staging ground for snipers, as there are only a few but stunning oases and houses to hide in. So if you like flanking enemies and finding good positions, then this campaign will be for you. The maps are very visually appealing too, and a nice breath of fresh air from all the other campaigns, with a nice variety of obstacles. Here you get the Americans again for the Allies, but actually you get mostly the British army, which is fantastic to see. another brand new faction to keep things interesting. There's even a Moroccan premium squad, which hopefully implies they'll keep adding new factions like the French in future campaigns or in this campaign. The Axis too also get a rebrand. They're filled with Italian troops, another fantastic addition alongside the Germans. These two new factions are one of the major selling points of the campaign, and the voice lines, names and appearances do really make you feel more immersed when you use them. For the British, you get some unique weapons like the SMLE, the Johnson M1941, the Lee Enfield sniper, the Boys anti-tank rifle, and brand new variants of the famous Thompson SMG, one with an awesome 50-round drum magazine. The Italians tag along with their Carcano rifles and snipers, Armaguerra Mod 39, a variety of Beretta SMGs, and the OVP M1918. Both factions also get unique vehicles like the Hurricane, the Spitfire, the Mosquito, the Beaufighter, the Matilda, and Crusader tanks. And this doesn't even mention the really uniquely designed Italian planes and tanks. But then this also doesn't mention the motorcycles you can use in this campaign, which are a really cool addition, and they're not overpowered, so you do have to use them in a specific way if you want to get anything out of them. But as always, it's not a perfect campaign. For starters, the fact that this campaign has many very open maps means it's very liable to grey zone camping, and if you don't know what that is, then you know what, you don't need to know. But it's incredibly annoying seeing a tank sitting in an area untouchable by infantry and cutting you off so you can't even get to the objective, which the devs really do need to fix somehow, and soon, as one of their highest priorities.
What are you playing at? What are you doing?
Then there's the repetitive nature of the unlocks in the campaign. The Allies get 4 different but very similar variants of the Thompson, and the Axis get 3 variants of the Beretta and 4 variants of the Carcano rifles. Now, I'm not saying this is necessarily bad, as other campaigns use variants of other things too, but it just appears quite repetitive and maybe off-putting if you do what I said at the start and look at the campaign tab. But also, the Axis in general have a poor reputation in Tunisia because, well, the stuff that they unlock just isn't that good. And honestly, the devs should have made this whole campaign the North African campaign, not the Tunisia campaign. There would be so much they could add if they did this, such as Australian troops around the city of Tripoli, the French troops and French colonial troops, Indian troops, the list goes on. It's puzzling to me why they limited themselves so heavily to only Tunisia, so I hope they've got good ideas of what new maps, weapons and squads they are going to add in the future.
Stop the cap.
Stalingrad was the most recent campaign to be released in April of this year, and believe me when I say this, it's kind of the bastard child of Enlisted. The ugly duckling, if you will. The odd one out. The Michael Burry of the financial markets, or the Burnley of the Premier League. RRP Burnley, condemned to the Championship. This is because it at least feels to me that it doesn't really know what it's trying to be, and it's trying to be a little bit of everything, which could actually be a good thing, as it's going to be an excellent introduction to all of the key skills you need for every campaign. It can be seen as a combination between Berlin and Moscow, with the city fighting from Berlin but more slow pace of Moscow. It has lots of close quarters fighting, but also is prime territory for snipers at the same time. Bolt action rifles do some work in this campaign too, as they have been buffed heavily in this campaign. Hopefully these changes come to all the other campaigns soon, as they need to, because bolt actions really are now a one-hit kill, which is what they should be, and which is why I love using them in Stalingrad. And so if you want to use powerful bolties, then this is the campaign for you, and it's so satisfying to use them here that, in my opinion, it's just the best part of this campaign. The main map area is also very good and immersive, with German propaganda on the loudspeaker as you join the game for the first time. It sends chills down your spine, as well as the iconic Stalingrad landmarks. The new uniforms are also great, and the customization feature for all soldiers and squads and even vehicles is perfect, albeit on the expensive end. So if you want to customize troops properly and really build a bond with them, then this is also the one for you. It's the Soviets and Germans in this one again, and there are many repeated weapons from other campaigns, especially for the Soviets, but the Germans get a stolen PPSH and the assault rifle MKB-42. But there are negatives, as always, and quite a few this time. This is the campaign where the devs and Gaijin tried a new business model, and many of the changes they made sense and were good, until they locked some levels. Now, I have a whole review explaining why this does not make the campaign pay to win, so watch that video after this one by clicking in the top corner of the video. Therefore, I won't explain it all here, but it is worth to bear in mind that some interesting weapons are locked off, for better or for worse.
This is a load of barnacles.
I heard that!
And remember when I mentioned for Tunisia that some things are repeated? Well, as I said earlier, the Soviets' weaponry is basically just copied and pasted from other campaigns into this one, so there wasn't really anything new added for them, sadly. The Germans got a few things new, as I said before, like the stolen PPSH and assault rifle MKB, but not much either, and the lack of, in quotation marks, different stuff is likely to put off players from this campaign. And whilst I said the map was really good, they only really have one battle arena, and it gets repetitive, though new maps will come out for it soon, so this won't be much of a problem in the future. It's good to bear in mind that this campaign is brand new, and probably unfinished in the devs' eyes, so it's hard to comment on things specifically as there's got to be much more that's coming soon. So it's definitely worth keeping up with all of Enlisted's updates, which you can do by subscribing to my channel and clicking the notification bell, because I cover all of Enlisted's major updates for you. Yes, I've told you probably 5 times to subscribe to the channel now, and if you guys have not done it by now, why? You stayed for the whole video, so I must be doing something right for you.
What are you playing at?
So we've covered all the campaigns individually, but how about as combinations to play? If you only want an early war experience, then play Moscow and Tunisia, and Stalingrad could also have a place in there. If you want a late war experience with more OP weapons, then Normandy and Berlin together could be a good combination. If you want the full Soviet experience, then Moscow and Berlin go well together, with help from Stalingrad. But maybe you want to experience the full war years of the Wehrmacht from early to late, then you could combine Moscow or Stalingrad with Normandy or Berlin. Alternatively, maybe you want to go for something completely different, i.e. you want to unlock the full might of the German army in terms of weaponry, in which case I'd recommend Berlin and Stalingrad to obtain assault rifles like the MP43, the STG and the MKB. But perhaps you want the full Thompson experience, in which case Normandy and Tunisia might be your priorities. And I haven't even mentioned yet doing the full circuit of all of them like I'm doing. The point is, there's no wrong answer. Figure out what you guys want to unlock or what parts of the game you enjoy, and pick the combination of campaigns and factions that correspond to it. Now, I could also speculate on future campaigns, but honestly it's probably easier to update this video when new campaigns come out, so be sure to check the pinned comment below this video for my opinions on those new campaigns. But what's your favourite campaign? Let me know in the comments down below, and the developers do read comments on my videos, so they will take your opinions into consideration. As a thank you for commenting, here's a video showing you what happened to each campaign in the last major update, which will help you decide on which one to play. But it's been an absolute pleasure ranting at you guys today. Have a wonderful day, enjoy yourselves, and I'll definitely see you in the next one.